morning, ladies and gentlemen. How you guys doing? I'm Victor Corrales. I'm gonna give you guys a little bit of more depth topic of what I will be talking about. My topic is the legalization of marijuana, the advantages it brings to states that are legalized and actually have the tax revenue from the sales of marijuana. Today, those of you guys that already know, I'm pretty sure the two big states that actually have legalized recreational marijuana is actually Colorado and Washington. But those of you guys that do not know, we actually have Oregon and actually Alaska is also two other states that actually joined the whole movement with the whole legalization for recreational marijuana. Just something to add on to that. My proposition today is pretty much to give you guys a couple, pretty much several advantages that would actually occur from actually legalizing marijuana in the state of California that we actually all live and we actually would all actually prosper from. Number one, I would actually sit there and say the legalization of marijuana would actually bring a controlled, safer marketplace for actually those that are actually already buying and actually using the existing actually customers and clientele that are actually in part of the marketplace, the black market as well, just to kind of give a little more regulation and kind of give them a little more control balance, giving everyone else also a little safer control of what is actually occurring in their environment and actually in their community. There's a lot of awareness that people are sitting there caring about that, oh, you know, the type of atmosphere that it actually brings to the community and those that actually have actually witnessed it and dealt with the whole incident of, you know, when the recreational marijuana actually came into effect in 2014, where it actually hit the boom wasn't actually in Colorado. Colorado was one of the biggest states that actually came and made a lot of contribution to the tax revenue. And adding to that with Colorado and Washington, they actually gained $100 million in tax revenue from 2014 to 2015. But one thing also, less efforts it would actually bring for the war against marijuana and drugs. In 2012, the Drug Policy Alliance stated $51 billion are spent annually on war on drugs alone. So it pretty much brings a savings of $13.7 billion annually to not having to enforce any marijuana laws that actually sit there and interfere with those that are actually sitting there inside the market or actually dealing with that. Two would be pretty much the arrest of the possession of marijuana. In 2012, FBI figures 658,000 arrests just alone on marijuana possession. $3.6 billion spent just on possession cases in the U.S. alone yearly is reported in the New York Times in an article I read from 2012. Number two, having a lower crime rate would help city to city improve any bad stereotypes it has. On marijuana, A would be in a form of being on marijuana, it's a form of being less violent. You're more calm, you're more collective. The crime rate reported in 2014 in Denver, Colorado was actually dropped from 2013 by 2.2%. Violent crimes actually dropped 2.8%. And the total crime rate of dropping from the state of Colorado of 8.8% of any violent crimes and any burglaries or anything that has to do with neighbor crimes. Three was the regulation of tax on revenue from marijuana would help California's deficit, breaking into the school system's problem that is actually occurring. Like in Denver, Colorado, they actually passed an initiative that the voters passed. 15% of marijuana wholesale tax revenue would actually be collected and only be actually given to the school systems. One of the states, Democratic governor, what's his name? Jay Smith. Jay Smith reported that millions would be taken out of billions of their dollars deficit for their state. So in a nutshell, pretty much every state pretty much has billions of dollars of deficit, But if you sit there and figure that if you're actually taking money from the tax revenue and you're getting that and you're putting it, millions of dollars that are going to be chipping away from the billions of dollars of deficit that we're actually having. So in an ultimate outcome, we would actually be benefiting in the ultimate outcome of actually legalizing marijuana for recreational or actually just medical purposes in the state of California. And that I do see it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Victor, the topic is clearly identified. The proposition, I think, is a little bit problematic because you jump immediately to a list of advantages, and so there's not really a declarative, clear statement of the proposition. The phrasing needs to be a lot more certain. You kind of preview what some of the advantages are going to be, but I don't know that it really gets presented at the beginning of the speech as clearly as it needs to be. In the body of the speech, there's an argument about controlling the marketplace, and then there's one about lowering crime, but it also sounds like somewhere in there's an argument about raising revenue and saving money from enforcing criminal issues. So I assume that there are probably at least three supporting points, but I think the one got a little conflated with, like the first and the second ones, controlling the marketplace and then the money issues. I think they got a little mixed in together. Lowering the crime rate is an interesting argument that you present. It makes it sound like basically if we legalize marijuana, we sedate all the criminals. And that's kind of an odd way to advance this as an argument, because if that's a good argument, then maybe we should just find a better sedation method for them. Maybe what we should do is, instead of sentencing people to prison, we should sentence them to heroin addiction. And I don't know. it comes across awkwardly. I think you've got a better argument that says, that there's less crime related to this, either because the marketplace changes or because the cost picture changes. There's less likelihood that people are going to engage in crime or something along those lines, as opposed to suggesting that Colorado's population has all gotten so high that they don't beat each other up or steal from each other anymore. I don't really think that's going to be a very convincing claim. I think the other ones probably make more sense and fit your argument a little bit better. You've got a lot of factual data about the number of states that have legalized marijuana. Most of your information seems to be focused on Colorado, so probably because they've had the law in place the longest, so they've got a little bit more experience on that. The revenue, I think, is a little ambiguous. $100 million tax revenue, but I'd be perfectly happy with $100 million. I don't know that it's going to solve a lot of problems at a statewide level. $100 million. Probably California spent that much on paper clips.
That was just from 11 months.
Yeah, so I think you need to work on developing that a little bit more. I like the idea there. There's some conflating of the anti-drug policies with all being marijuana, and I think that's not necessarily the case. The $13 billion that you mentioned, it didn't sound to me like it was exclusive for marijuana, so you want to be careful about making
that's what I was,
hang on, let me finish talking, and you can say whatever you want later, but right now I got chain of thought as I'm going through this. Okay. The arrests that you had, I thought that was pretty good, and then you had some good statistic on the amount of money that was spent prosecuting these crimes, so I think that's pretty effective. Let's see, the statistics on crime are okay, but we're back to a similar issue like we were talking about in the earlier speech about causality. I think you want to be a little bit careful about assuming that there's a cause-effect relationship there, I think that's a good starting point for making that argument. Again, I'm not sure that that should be the main claim that you're presenting here unless we get more data. I think that that's a little bit iffy. I think the cost argument is the strongest argument that you've got, and you've got some good data on that. Generally, you do a good job citing the information. Presentation is okay. I'm going to point it out. You're going to watch it, and you'll see.
Yeah.
You've got a crutch word.
Yeah.
You know what it is, and I stopped counting after 30. But you've got to say, that's a word that I've got to take out of my vocabulary and practice not saying.
Yeah, well, it's the
because
first time getting recorded, so it
Yeah.
was like,
it's
definitely stuck.
no, you know, people they find words or phrases that they catch onto, and they do it as a way of dealing with anxiety issues, or as just a way of making an easy transition,
Yeah.
and it's distracting. So you'll want to be careful about that. And
Definitely.
like I said, when you watch, you can keep track if you want on the number of times that you said it.
Oh,
Okay, that'll be.